Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. You're just here to do a quick reaction, as I am Jay reaction to President Biden's speech. Of course, a couple of days ago, it was announced, and we made a video about it here, that Joe Biden is dropping out of the race and will not be seeking his party's nomination for re-election in November, and that Kamala Harris, his vice president, is going to run in his place. Now, what did I think of the speech? Well, I thought he was whispering a lot through it. Couldn't really understand a lot of what he was saying. Um, he was talking about the economy, at least what's going on. I was going to hit you up in your inbox to see if you were coming on. He was talking about the economy. Um, and how it's much better than when he got into office, you know, 3.5 years ago. He was talking about um, Supreme Court reforms, which is something he wanted to accomplish before he left office. But a lot of the pundits after were saying, that's not necessarily possible because he only has a certain amount of days to achieve it. Um, a couple of things. Again, a lot of what he said was the same stuff he said in the letter that we read on the channel. That it was the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, which I debunked that. That's not true. He said that he got the border crisis under control. He said that in the speech. That's not true. Anybody can look at the southern border right now and tell that that's not true. He mentioned about the economy is doing much better. I always find it funny when current sitting presidents, even Donald Trump, brag about the economy because, first of all, the economy is organic. The president doesn't control that. And second of all, the reforms that you can make with regards to the economy are put in place by your predecessor, not by you. You know what I mean? The economy, it's not like um, they make it out to be, that even presidents with booming economies, like Bill Clinton, for example, when Lisa and I were kids in the 90s, that wasn't Bill Clinton didn't do anything to affect that necessarily. The economy got booming because of the advent of the internet and the dot-com industry that was new and exciting. You know, Bill Clinton he just happened to be there, during that time. Of course, things that a president can do to um, bolster the economy is keeping the country safe. If the country's at war and there are times of uncertainty, then people will spend less money and the economy will falter. So there are certain things that a president can do in those cases. But in most cases, no, that's not. I mean, they have nothing really to do with it. Someone in the comment section in the last video mentioned that inflation got worse under Biden because he stopped the pipeline. I'm not really sure what pipeline that individual is referring to, but maybe that was the case. You know, Biden unfortunately will be blamed for, unfortunately, especially if you supported him in 2020, he will be blamed for inflation. I mean, that will be his legacy, in history. Also, I think, like I said, he basically lied when it came to the southern border. The southern border is not safe. The southern border is not secure. I don't know what Like when I'm watching the speech, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I mean, the southern border is worse than. Okay, Lisa says the southern border might be worse because I mean a little better because people aren't talking about it. Yeah, they aren't talking about it right now because a former president just got shot, Lisa, and a current president uh, is not seeking re-election because of mental decrepitude, instability. So, I mean, of course, they're not talking about it right now because other things are more important and more prescient in the media. And you got to think the media puts out the message that they want to put out, and this is what they're talking about right now. Well, Trump hasn't been talking about it because before Lisa says Trump hasn't been talking about it. Actually, he'll start talking about it a lot more now that his running mate is Kamala Harris because she was in as vice president. She was in charge of that, and that was her biggest botch. You know that they couldn't get it under control. I mean, I think to me, the people that I work with and the people that I interact with that are Trump supporters, they are Trump supporters because of the crisis at the southern border. They believe, okay, Lisa says, but he hasn't. So that community is getting a little better. Possibly, we'll see in the coming months if he mentions that. But everybody I know that you're like, okay, well, why are you voting for Trump in 2024? What's the reason? Right? You go to the average person on the street, the average woman or the average man, and you say to them, well, why choose Trump over what was formerly Biden and is now Kamala Harris, the incumbent administration. Most of them will say, some of them will say inflation. Some of them will say, shit just costs too much under Joe Biden. Some of them will say Gaza, and most of them will say is the southern border. That's the issue that's going to decide the election in a lot of people's minds is the southern border, especially in places that have become sanctuary cities. No, he didn't. Lisa's saying when Trump was in office, the southern border thing was still bad and he didn't help. Yes, because he didn't build the wall. The wall thing was a lie. And not only did he not build the wall, he knew that he could use this as a wedge issue to get reelected either in 2020 or 2024, right? You know what I mean? Thing is, here's the thing with politicians, guys. They very rarely, if ever, solve problems because if they did, then we wouldn't need them anymore. It's like doctors. Doctors will give you medicine to alleviate your problems, but they will never solve your problems because it's not in their economic best interest. So this immigration thing, and it's not really illegal immigration. Trump and other politicians, mainstream Republicans, say that it's illegal immigration, and even Democrats say that it's illegal immigration because they don't want to be offensive. It's really immigration, period, to the average person. They're like, damn, we got too many people coming into the country. Now, that doesn't make them, and people get upset when people say, well, if you're against illegal immigration, then you must be a racist, right? You must be racist against Mexicans or racist against whatever group that's coming into the country, by the droves. It's like some people are racist. Some people dislike the fact that these are mostly Hispanics coming in, changing the demographics of the country or whatever. But a lot of the people, even including Hispanic Americans and other ethnicities, are just upset because there's too many people coming into the country and our cities cannot afford it. We're already overcrowded. You know what I mean? In New York, we've had trouble. We've had trouble accommodating these migrants that are coming in. You know what I mean? And it's a huge issue. And it's such a huge issue that uh, I'm not saying that New York is going to go for Trump. Of course, they're not. You know what I mean? It's a completely liberal city and a mostly liberal state, especially in the big population centers. But it is something that people do care about. It is something that is an issue for most voters. Is the is um this immigration situation. It's too many people in these cities. You know what I mean? We can't accommodate them. You know what I mean? Immigration is a huge issue. And Trump didn't solve it when he was president because he wanted to continue to have it as an issue for voters, a wedge issue for voters. But I think when Democrats frame it like that, when Democrats be like, oh, well, you're only against immigration because you're racist, I think that's not why most people are against it. And when they say things like that, they alienate people. They're like, oh shit, I'm just voicing my concern. I'm just saying what I feel. How this is impacting me, and you're calling me a racist. That's not fair. You don't know if I'm a racist. You don't know if that's the reason I'm saying it. You know what I mean? I could be saying it if we were on the border with Ukraine, right? And the Ukraine situation was going on, and a lot of Ukrainians that are white were pouring into the country. I'm pretty sure a lot of white Americans would still say, look, there's too many people and we can't accommodate them, right? If we were on the border with an African country, I'm pretty sure a lot of black Americans would still say that it's an issue. And a lot of Hispanic Americans, since we are on a border with Hispanic countries, say that Hispanic immigration, legal or illegal, is an issue. It's not an issue of race, but the Democrats and the liberal left, they want to make it an issue of race just to shut people up. You know what I mean? Oh, you're against immigration because the city you live in doesn't have enough resources? You must be a racist. Right? No, it's not that. It's not that I'm racist. It's just that, look around you. It doesn't matter what color they are. It's just there's too many people. And then another problem with it too is like you have people coming in constantly, right? And coming in a large influx here. Pardon me. A large influx here, a large influx there. The people that are here are never going to become assimilated into American culture. They're never going to become culturally American unless you shut it off and give them time to meld into the American mainstream. That's what they did in the 1800s, the late 1800s, early 1900s. Eventually, they had to restrict immigration from places like Eastern Europe, Italy, Ireland, in order to assimilate those immigrants into mainstream society. If not, then you're going to create balkanized nations. Those that remember the 1990s conflict in Yugoslavia, remember that the country of Yugoslavia, after the fall of communism in 1991, was split into several ethnic divisions. Croatians on this side, Serbs on this side, Muslims on this side, Slovenians on this end. And there was no cultural unity or cultural cohesiveness. You don't want that in a nation, because a nation, as the great president, the 16th president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, once said, a nation divided against itself cannot stand. And that brings me to the Trump side. Just as much as I feel like people on the Democratic side, the left, antagonize people and always call people racist, I feel like if the Republicans lose this election and the right wing and the conservatives lose this election, I feel like they need to stop demonizing everybody on the left also. You know what I mean? Making the left out to be this big boogeyman is not going to help. You know what I mean? It's not going to heal the divisions that we have in our country. Exploiting those divisions is only going to make it worse. Um, so, what else about the speech? Um, he mentioned he mentioned the war in Gaza. Now, this is another topic, the war in Gaza, that I feel like Biden was being less than honest. You know what I mean? He was saying that they're working towards uh, a peace initiative with uh, the with all parties, not all parties involved. I don't think that's true. You know what I'm saying? And they're caught in a conundrum, and I understand the conundrum. I understand the predicament that they're in as as Democrats. Now, if Trump wins hypothetically, you are not going to hear about working with all parties involved or all sides involved because that's just not going to happen. We saw what he is capable of, what he believes is the best solution to peace in the Middle East, and it's a workaround with other Arab nations, completely ignoring the plight of the Palestinians. But again, that that strategy is ineffective. That strategy that the Trump administration has is ineffective. We they tried that in the '60s, in the '50s, in the '60s, in the '70s, especially in the '70s when Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat signed that peace initiative, the Camp David Accords in the late '70s. It was historic because it was the first time an Arab nation, Egypt, even recognized Israel ever, in its history. But that doesn't work because those nations, the Gulf nations, Chad, Sudan, whatever, all those nations that signed the Abraham Accord, Morocco, those Arab nations don't necessarily have the Palestinians' best interests at heart. They recognize the economic powerhouse that Israel is, the connections that Israel has to the United States and to the European Union, and they want a piece of that economically. They don't really care about the Palestinians. But understand the problems again that both the Trump administration, if they come in, the Trump Vance administration, which JD Vance is a pure Zionist, Trump is a pure Zionist. We know this. So say hypothetically, the Harris administration comes in, they're faced with an even worse conundrum because unlike the Trump administration, nobody on the right wing side of the aisle is on the side of any of the Palestinians, even sympathetic to the Palestinians' plight. So they could just ignore them like they did during Trump's administration. But the Democrats can't. I mean, the Democrats have to work around it somehow. But how do they work around it? Because who can they deal with? Who can they talk to? Fatah, which is the opposing side of Hamas in the political makeup of Palestine, is not necessarily effective because the Palestinians aren't listening to them. They don't have a hold over the Palestinians like they used to, in the '90s, when Oslo was signed. You know, they don't have the influence anymore. Yasser Arafat's been dead for over 20 years. Going to be over 20 years. He passed away in 2004. He doesn't have that kind of influence the way that he used to. The PLO, Fatah, it doesn't mean anything anymore. Hamas is the party they have to be forced to deal with. Hezbollah is the party that they'll have to force to deal with in the North. But of course, the United States, Democrat or Republican, is not going to deal with those belligerents on that side of, you know, from that point of view. So it's like, what do? You can't invite the Palestinians. What's Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestine, going to do? He doesn't control Gaza. Fatah doesn't control Gaza, and the way he barely controls the West Bank, the part of Palestine that he does control. You know what I mean? So I feel like that part of the speech on Biden's behalf was a little aspirational. He talked about how he endorsed Kamala Harris, that she was one of the best people to work with. He said, um, behind the scenes, again, I can't wait for the next Bob Woodward book, because Bob Woodward, ever since the early 1970s when he came out with Watergate, the and we reviewed one of his books, the book on the first Trump administration on this channel, but he has several about every administration since Nixon, Carter's administration, Reagan's, Bush one, Clinton's, Bush two, Obama, and Trump. You know, um, ever since that, he's had these amazing books that really tell you about behind the scenes. When I read Obama's War, his book on the Obama administration, that's when I found out that it was Joe Biden really pushing to end Afghanistan. Obama was hesitant, but Joe Biden was the one that was really pushing to end Afghanistan um, during his tenure as vice president. You know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to see when Bob Woodward does come out with a behind the scenes book on the Biden Harris administration these past 4 years, if that's true, because we've heard reports that um, Biden and Harris, their camps don't really get along. They act as though they get along, but that there's dissension in the ranks. We saw it. We knew that, well, with Trump and Mike Pence, it exploded. When January the 6th happened. And we found out that they never really got along either. You know, that's why Trump picked J.D. Vance, because he's a yes man. He's willing to support Trump in anything he does. So Trump wants a loyalist. We saw it in the movie on Robert Mueller, the Mueller investigation, the Showtime movie they did about Trump. What does Trump say? I want loyalty, complete loyalty. You know what I mean? So he runs this administration like a mafia boss. But we knew this already. But, Biden saying completely supports Kamala Harris. I think the best thing for him to do, though, is, and I asked my co-host Lisa her opinion on this, I don't feel like Joe Biden should campaign for Kamala. I feel like Joe Biden is in a very similar situation with Kamala in 2024 that George W. Bush was in with John McCain in 2008. George W. Bush was highly unpopular with the American people. He didn't go to the Republican National Convention that year. He didn't campaign for John McCain. They completely ignored him as if he did not exist, even though he was the sitting president. Especially after the economic crisis, because he was so unpopular. I feel like Biden is the same. I feel like if they ignore him, and if Kamala Harris comes out and says, I res- Okay, Lisa. If Kamala Harris comes out and says, "I respect Joe Biden, um, I respect him as a person, but I want to do this all on my own, and I want to make a difference on my own," and she just campaigns for herself, her and Barack Obama say she get the endorsement of Obama because he's very highly popular with the Democrats, then she's good. But if she links herself to Joe's legacy, then that's bad because Joe has a terrible legacy. It was a terrible presidency, despite what he's saying. Trying to make it out like it was a good presidency. It was a horrible presidency. He got rid of COVID. I give him credit for that, and it wasn't even entirely right. He got the COVID situation under control, but other than that, his presidency was terrible. He was a lame duck president. In my opinion. And having her link herself to his legacy would only hurt her in the long run. And Lisa is bringing up an amazing point that I even forgot. Thank you, Lisa, for that. She said she hasn't gotten the endorsement from Obama yet, which is concerning to me. Exactly, Lisa. There is a civil war brewing behind the scenes. This speech, people say, "Oh, well, Jay, you're not really talking about the specific of the speech." First of all, most of it I couldn't even understand because the guy was mumbling. This speech was bullshit. Most of it was bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, if you lived through the 4 years of this man, you know that it was complete BS. You know what I mean? Like, uh, the Democrats right now, it's a civil war going on within the Democratic Party. Some want Kamala Harris, others do not. And I think, I can't speak for the man, but I think President Obama doesn't want Kamala Harris as the nominee. And a lot of Democrats do not. You know what I mean? Even not just the upper echelon of the Democratic Party. Right. Lisa's saying people are saying Obama was the one. He did. He encouraged Joe as a friend. As a friend. Not only as a Democrat and he wants to save face for the party, but as a friend. Listen, Joe, when he got in, was already starting to suffer the effects of cognitive decline. Like, we saw it. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't the Joe Biden that we had seen when he was senator, right? Or even, okay, he wasn't on the national scene when he was senator, and I don't live in Pennsylvania, so I don't know how he was when senator or in those other elections that he ran. But I'll just say, I'll just say, when he was vice president, he wasn't that Joe Biden anymore. And it only got worse over time. You know what I mean? He should have ran in 2016. That was the time to do it. He was a lot younger and he wasn't going through this. Trust me, I sympathize with the president. You know what I mean? Because my family member, my grandmother, who I love dearly, who I was raised by, is going through something similar, with cognitive decline. And it's amazing within 2 years how things can be different. You know what I mean? How you say, well, 4 years ago, he was debating Trump vociferously when they had the debates. It was comical, but he was still had comebacks against Trump. But then when you saw this debate, and when you saw his presidency over the last 4 years, you saw him slowly declining, and it was really sad to see. And I'm just an American citizen. He's just my president. He's not even my friend. And so, could you imagine if you're Barack Obama and he is your friend and he is somebody that you work closely with? Okay, he's somebody that you work closely with over 8 years. As your right hand man, you feel for him and you love him and you say, no, Joe, you have to drop out for your own good, not only for the good of the country, not only for the good of the party, but for your own personal good. Lisa saying, well, the man was in his late 70s when he became president. Yes, he should have ran in 2016, but his son had just died, so he wasn't ready. Lisa, you're absolutely right. I don't begrudge him for not wanting to run because his son just passed away. God forbid if one of my children passed away, I wouldn't want to run for president either. But here's the thing: I would never want to run because my window of opportunity had passed me by. You know what I'm saying? I know that was his dream and everything. He tried on several occasions, 3 occasions in his history, but he just wasn't there. I mean, a lot of people in private, his family was saying the same thing that he shouldn't have. You know what I mean? And it really showed. You know what I mean? The man suffered. He's just saying, honestly, in 2020, there was no one else to pick. And no one wanted the job because of what we were trying to get out of. Yeah, that's true. Trump was such a unique situation that anybody could have gotten in. And we were desperate. We were desperate as a people. That's why I don't see why they would want to vote him in again. You know, but hey, the American people are that dumb, so they probably will. I hope they don't, but they probably will. You know, um, uh, Lisa also says that she thinks it has to do with jealousy that because Kamala Harris is a woman. Um, I don't know, Lisa. I don't think Obama is sexist. He has two daughters. I don't think you can. I don't think you can throw the sexist label at Barack Obama. He just probably feels, from knowing them personally and knowing what it takes to be a president, that maybe he feels like she's not the one. She's not ready yet. I mean, he knows this from a personal point of view. You can't just say that, oh, he's not endorsing her because she's a woman. No, that's a reach. I don't. To me, Barack Obama seems like the most not sexist man in the whole world. I mean, a man with two daughters. I mean, I can't put that label on him. Again, putting a label on somebody as a sexist just because or that they're jealous of Kamala Harris. Why would Barack Obama be jealous of Kamala Harris? He was president for 8 years. He's already attained that. There's nothing that she has that he wants. You know, so now other Democrats, that's true. Just because a man is, Lee says, just because a man is as daughters don't mean he can't be sexist. Okay, that's true. You're right. But I doubt Barack Obama is sexist. I doubt. I mean, he endorsed Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election, and she was a woman. You know what I mean? I don't think that's the reason. You know, and people will say, "Oh well, eh, if she gets in and she becomes the second black person to be the president of the United States, that will diminish his accomplishment of being the first one and only." And that could be a reason. I don't think that's a reason either. You know, I think he just knows her personally. He knows her temperament. He knows what she's capable of, and he knows what it takes to be that. You know, because he was there for 8 years. He had to deal with the bullshit of the Republicans. He had to deal with the bullshit of the American people. You know, and maybe he doesn't feel like she's ready for that. You know, what I mean, it has to be a reason why why he hasn't endorsed her, given his endorsement yet. You know, maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Maybe he's waiting to do it at the DNC. I don't know. But if he is holding back his endorsement, it's for a reason. Again, we don't know it personally. We don't, and then we don't know what it takes to be that in that position as a black person in America. You know, she's going to face immense scrutiny. If anybody knows what it takes and what it's going to be like for her, it's Barack Obama, because he's been there. He knows what it's like. He's walking in those shoes. He's never competed against Trump. Obama versus Trump in an election is a dream match that will never happen. You know what I mean? Two masters. You know, the best from each side. But it's going to take a lot for her. She's going to have to battle it all. Even if she gets in, it's going to be worse for her than it was for Joe Biden. Of course, because she's a woman and a black woman at that. You know what I mean? And Obama should be the one standing by her side, telling her, listen, this is what you're going to have to go through. This is what you're going to have to endure. This is how you're going to have to conduct yourself. Because when you're in this, we all do, Lisa. We all do. Um, Obama has never addressed Trump personally. Even in his book, he doesn't address him. I mean, I granted the book he put out, the one I have, is the first half of his presidency. So he's not dealing with the second half when Trump was really attacking him on the birther situation and Trump was really going at him, or when Trump got elected. So maybe that's the book we're really waiting for. The juicy stuff, will come out when if Trump again becomes the president, you know, then it'll be more interesting when that second book about the second term from 2012 to 2016. Yeah, I took it out. I put it there. When 2012 to 2016 comes out, that's the one I'm waiting for, and I hope during that Obama finally lets loose and takes the gloves off and says, "Okay, you wanted a motherfucker, here he goes," right? And really unleashes on Trump. I hope that happens, but if he don't, then the book's gonna really suck because the second part of his presidency, 2012 to 2016, most of it was, Trump getting on every TV show, attacking him on the birther situation, attacking him on his economy, attacking him on his foreign policy, attacking him here, attacking him there. Basically, Trump didn't start really. People say Trump started on June 15th, 2015, campaigning when he announced his campaign. That's not true. I feel like Trump started campaigning right after Mitt Romney lost the election in 2012. So, and Obama just ignored him, right? Because he didn't feel like he was serious. And then, he won the election, and then he became the president, and Obama had to hand the keys over to him and had to act cordial to him. But you could tell that there was tension and there was animosity between these two men. Both charismatic men, both men that had unique presidencies, unlike any two presidencies that we've ever seen before, because both men were outsiders. Both men were not seasoned politicians, you know, but both were incredibly charismatic, especially when you compare them to their predecessors. I mean, people say Bill Clinton was incredibly charismatic, and he was for his time, but he was a career politician. He's been in office. He's been in governor for. He was a governor of Arkansas for years. George Bush Senior and Junior, come on, they are political dynasties. So they didn't come from the same cloth as a Trump or an Obama. And they honestly didn't have the charisma that the Trumps and the Obamas had. Trump's campaign and candidacy and Obama's campaign and candidacy made people pay attention to politics that never paid attention to politics before. Brought a lot of people, outsiders, people that never cared about politics, care about politics. Because with Trump and Obama, you either loved them, or you hated them, and you paid attention. You paid attention to see them fall, and you paid attention, and the ones that liked them paid attention to see them succeed. And they loved these men. Their followers loved them, and their haters hated them. It wasn't like with other presidents. Oh, when I was a kid, even Bill Clinton. When I was a kid, Bill Clinton would come on TV. My grandma would be like, "Oh, Bill Clinton's on TV," and I cared a little bit because I was into politics. I was a weird kid, but I didn't care as much as I cared when Obama got in or when Trump got in. I didn't pay attention as much. And nobody really did. Not even the adults around me. You know what I mean? Because people felt ambivalent towards Clinton and towards George W. Bush, not necessarily towards the policies they were making or the things they were doing or not doing. Because we know about Bill Clinton's improprieties, and we know about George Bush's blunders with the war in Iraq. But that was different. They weren't paying attention to the men. They were paying attention to the policies. But with Trump and with Obama, you had the people paying attention to the men themselves, the cult of their personality, not necessarily their policies. Because if you walk up to your average Obama supporter that was not into politics before Obama, a lot of them didn't really know what policies he supported or didn't support. They just liked Obama. Or if they hated Obama, they didn't know what policies he supported and didn't support. They just hated Obama. Same thing with Trump. The people that love him didn't know why they love him. They love him because he's Trump, right? And the people that hated him because he's Trump. A lot of the people, not everybody. Of course, they're political experts. They're political aficionados that do know these guys. You know what I mean? And know, their policies and stuff like that. And dislike them or like them for those reasons. But I'm talking about the average person. Again, one of the reasons why my channel is J Reaction is because I react to the stories that I talk about from a normal person's perspective, from an average individual, not a learned person. My reactions are genuine. So yeah, you did, Lisa, because you pay attention to this kind of stuff. But the average individual that has a lower sense of awareness than you did not. I talked to them. I spoke to them. both the haters of both these guys. I spoke to haters of Obama. I spoke to lovers of Obama. I spoke to haters of Trump and lovers of Trump. And a lot of these people be like, "Oh, I hate Trump," and then you'd be like, "Well, why?" And then they couldn't really pinpoint necessarily why. It was just something about him, his personality, that they disliked, or something about his personality that they liked. It was his personality. It was the personality of these men that either attracted people or revolted them. It wasn't their policies. They brought a different level of awareness and a different level of entertainment, if you will, to politics that did not exist before. Through their charisma. Both men were incredible showmen. Both men were friendly with celebrities. Trump more so, but even Obama. But before Barack Obama, did you ever really see, Lisa, honestly, presidents go on late night talk shows like Jimmy Kimmel, late night talk shows like The Tonight Show? No. You never saw that from Clinton. You never saw that from Bush. You never saw that from Bush 1. Maybe Reagan, yes, because he was the first to do it. He wasn't the first because Kennedy was similar to that in the 60s. I don't know if he went on late night talk shows or whatever, but Clinton did in the beginning. You're right, Lisa. Clinton did. He went on Arsenio Hall campaigning, but I'm talking about while he was president. you know what I mean? You wouldn't hear musicians like Jay-Z or entertainment people like Oprah talk about they were friends with the Clintons, like that, even if they were, but they wouldn't reference it necessarily in their songs. Right. I mentioned that, Lisa, on Arsenio Hall. Yes, that's true. He did. But Obama was always out there. Obama was liked by the entertainment industry. Trump, he comes from the entertainment. It's just, I don't know, it's just different. I can't really describe necessarily what it is, but the way that people react to these men, unlike any way that they reacted to any president in my lifetime before. Like I said, I don't know Reagan. I mean, I know him from reading about him in history and seeing and talking to people that were alive at that time, but I didn't experience him as president because I was born in '85. He just got reelected the year before, and I was just a baby. You know what I'm saying? When he left office in '88, I was only like 3 or 4 years old. So I don't know, but in Clinton, like Lisa said, and Lisa and I said in the beginning, Clinton was out there doing that, and he was kind of, yeah, he was. So he was the first. Like I said, he wasn't really the first entertainer president, kind of. Bring that Hollywood flair to the presidency, because I feel like Kennedy was the first to do that, and then Kennedy did it a little, Reagan did it a little more, Clinton did it somewhat, and Obama just blew open the door, and then Trump took advantage of that door, and he became what he became, and then with Biden, it kind of went back to that, like. Unless Biden was doing something crazy, like not crazy, but like he messed up somehow in his speech, but people didn't really pay attention or care necessarily about him. Most of the talk in the last 4 years was about things going on in the world, like Ukraine or Gaza or the inflation, or other things of that nature, the border crisis. It wasn't like, oh, well, what did Biden do today? How did he mess up? Like, look, Obama was able to send the Republicans into a tailspin, into a frenzy, just by wearing a tan suit one time in like 2012, 2011. There was nothing this man couldn't do. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't wipe his butt without the Republicans criticizing him somehow. You know what I mean? They were on his ass 24/7 when he was president. And people will say, "Oh, that's probably because he was black, the first black president," and that has a lot to do with it, yes. But his charisma was what people were attracted to, and his attitude was what people were attracted to, and the kind of attention he brought to the White House, the kind of attention he brought to politics. I know many people that weren't interested in politics at all. Like I gauge the difference. I gauge the difference, Lisa. The first time I ever voted in my life was the 2004 election, and that was between John Kerry and George W. Bush. And I was in college at that time, a freshman. Um, Now, I'm not saying, okay, Lisa. Lisa is disputing me. Lisa is saying, so Lisa, you believe that if there, Lisa saying because there was Biden was president, there was a pandemic, there was no time to go on late shows. Yes, I know that, Lisa, but I feel like they wouldn't have wanted him to go on anyway because he's not considered cool or controversial. Obama was considered cool, and Trump was considered controversial. So the entertainment industry ate it up when it came to these guys, whereas with Biden, not so much. With Bush, not so much. But going back to my initial point, um, 2004, exactly. That's my point. Lisa says he's old-fashioned. That's my point. Going back to 2004, you had George W. Bush on the Republican side and John Kerry on the Democratic side. And majority of my friends that were also getting their right to vote for the first time ever in their life didn't care about this election. They could care less because they didn't care about politics and they didn't care about the men that were running. They didn't have no charisma. They didn't have no, what does the kids say? They didn't have no riz, is the word they used to say, riz. They didn't, which is short for charisma. They didn't have no charisma, um, Bush or Kerry. But 4 years later, Obama comes in and everybody cares. Those that hate him want to go out and vote to hate him. Those that love him want to go out and vote to love him. He got people to care. When I was a kid growing up, politics was, people were ambivalent about it. People didn't give a shit about it. You know what I'm saying? It was just not something people cared about because they didn't care. People get caught up in the cult of personality when it comes to these people. They shouldn't, because we should care about their policies. Even Obama, if you love him, or even Trump, if you love him, because I do have some Trump supporters on this channel. I want to be fair to them. You know what I mean? Even though I don't support him, but I did in 2016. You know what I mean? But uh, you shouldn't care about the Trump or Obama as people because they don't know you as a person. You know, they don't care if you exist as a person. They just do things for the all of America, hopefully, or for themselves. Sometimes some people would say. You know what I mean? You shouldn't get caught up in the personalities, caught up in the policies they enact or they don't enact. You know, that affect your life on a daily basis. But unfortunately, people don't. You know what I'm saying? People get caught up in he's cool or he's funny or he tells it like it is or whatever. And maybe that could be a window into getting into politics deeper. You could be attracted to a Donald Trump or Barack Obama or somebody else, even a Kamala Harris, especially young women, and you could say, Well, I didn't know what I didn't know any of the issues in the beginning, but I liked the way Kamala conducted herself. I thought she was cool, and I voted. I became her supporter because of that. And then I looked in deeper. Everybody needs an introduction. It's like in wrestling. How many of us as wrestling fans we liked Hulk Hogan in the beginning? We liked him in the beginning. As we became kids, as we became older than kids, we liked other wrestlers that were more serious and had better in ring matches that were not like Hulk Hogan, that were better than Hulk Hogan. Same thing with rap. You might have got introduced to rap through Vanilla Ice or MC Hammer or somebody like a pop rapper, even Drake, right? But then as you became a more serious hip hop fan and you got into the music deeper, you 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 got drawn to other people that were better and your taste matured. That happens all the time in every walk of life. So I'm not saying that that's bad. You know what I mean? That could be good. You know what I'm saying? Like, but don't let that be the only reason. Look into other reasons why you like or dislike a candidate other than superficial ones. And that's the point I make. But we got to see who he picks as his run. And it's happening again, not just with Trump, but with J.D. Vance. A lot of people say they like J.D. Vance because of his life story. They could identify with it. Him being raised by his grandmother, him going through these issues with his mom, the drug abuse, and the addiction, and the multiple stepfathers. And people went through that too, in their lives. So they identify with J.D. Vance. Not really necessarily knowing about anything that he's done in the state of Ohio for the 2 years that he's been senator in Ohio. And a lot of hillbillies, a lot of people from the Appalachia region, by the way, don't like J.D. Vance because, much like Kamala in the black community, many people feel that J.D. Vance is not an authentic hillbilly. You know what I mean? Doesn't have an authentic hillbilly experience, whatever that means. You know, his family did move from Eastern Kentucky to Ohio before he was even born. So I think his hillbilly bona fides is called into question. But anyway, you know, as far as the speech, I feel like Biden could have used a translator because I couldn't understand anything, and a little I could understand to me was complete, as Biden himself would say, malarkey. Peace. Lisa, thank you for contributing. Love you guys. Have a great night.